He was just some random old guy in the way. Tyler barely touched him. And honestly, that video got 4 million views in one night. 4 million. That man should be sending me a thank you card, not pressing charges. Those words, those exact words. I have been a judge in Providence Municipal Court for a very long time. I have heard things in this room that would break your heart. I have heard things that would make you angry. But I have never, not once in all my years on this bench, heard someone say that a beaten war veteran should be grateful for being beaten. I am Judge Frank Caprio, and I want you to understand something before we go any further. The words I just read to you were not the end of this story. They were the beginning of a reckoning that this young woman did not see coming, a reckoning she will never forget. The morning of this hearing, I walked into my courtroom the same way I always do. I set my papers down. I looked out at the gallery. I saw the usual faces, some nervous, some tired, some hoping for mercy. And then I saw her, Jade Mercer, 24 years old. She walked in like she was walking onto a red carpet. Her nails were long and painted pearl white. She had on a cream-colored blazer with a designer logo stitched on the left pocket. I recognized the brand. It cost more than most people in this city make in 2 weeks. Her hair was done perfectly. She had a ring light propped against the wall outside my courtroom. A ring light. Because even here, even in a court of law, she wanted to look good on camera. She caught me looking at it. She smiled, not a nervous smile, not a sorry smile, a confident smile, like she had already decided this was going to be content. If you believe justice should be equal for everyone, whether you have 2 million followers or $2 in your pocket, then stay right here. You are going to want to see what happens next. The bailiff, Officer Reyes, called the case. His voice was steady and firm, the way it always is. Case 2026, CR 4471, the State versus Jade Elaine Mercer. Charges included criminal harassment, accessory to assault, and obstruction of a civil proceeding. The gallery went quiet. I looked down at my folder. I looked up at Jade. She was still smiling. I said, "Good morning, Ms. Mercer." She said, "Good morning, Your Honor," and she tilted her chin up just a little when she said it, like a greeting with something beneath her. I let it go, for now. Before I spoke another word, I asked Officer Reyes to bring the victim's file to the front. And I want to tell you about this man. I want you to really hear this because the details matter. His name was Sergeant Douglas Hale. He was 71 years old. He had served in the United States Army from 1972 to 1979. He did 2 tours in Vietnam. 2. He came home with a Purple Heart, that is a medal given to soldiers who are hurt in battle, and a shrapnel scar that ran from his left elbow to his shoulder. After he came home, he spent 30 years working as a night shift security guard at a warehouse in South Providence. He never complained. He never asked for anything. His wife of 43 years, Eleanor, had passed away from cancer 2 years before this incident. He was still grieving. He lived alone in a small apartment on the east side of Providence. His granddaughter, Maya Hale, sat in the front row of my gallery that morning. She was 19 years old. She had dark circles under her eyes. She had been crying before she walked in. I could tell. Douglas Hale was not in my courtroom that day because he was seeking trouble. He was there because trouble had found him. On the evening of March 7, 2026, Sergeant Hale was leaving a grocery store on Elmsworth Avenue in Providence. He had a bag in each hand. He was walking slowly because of an old knee injury, the same knee that took a hit from shrapnel more than 50 years ago. He was not in anyone's way. He was just a man going home. And that is when Jade Mercer and her boyfriend Tyler Bosch walked up behind him. Now, Tyler Bosch was not in my courtroom that day. His case was being handled separately, but what I had in my folder was directly connected to him. Because what happened on that sidewalk did not start with Tyler, it started with Jade, and the evidence would prove exactly that. I looked across the bench at Jade. I asked her if she had legal representation. She told me she had decided to represent herself. Then she added, and I want you to hear this exactly, she said, "I don't think I need a lawyer for something this minor." The gallery shifted. I heard someone in the back draw in a sharp breath. I kept my face calm. That is something I have learned over many years. Keep your face calm. Let the moment breathe. Then respond. I said, Ms. Mercer, accessory to assault against a senior citizen and decorated veteran is not minor. In this courtroom, nothing involving another person's pain is minor. Do you understand that? She looked at me. She nodded, but there was something in her eyes, a flicker, like she was deciding how to play this. She said, Of course, Your Honor. I understand completely. She did not understand, but she would. If you are watching this right now and your blood is already starting to heat up, I feel that too. Every single time I look at that folder, I feel it. Before we go any further into this, I want to ask you something personal. Drop a comment right now and tell me, have you ever seen someone treat another person's pain like it was entertainment? Because that is exactly what we are dealing with today, and it gets worse. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss a case. Every story in this courtroom matters, this one especially. Now let me walk you through what actually happened that night. The first piece of evidence I reviewed was the live stream video itself. The prosecution had obtained a full copy from the platform's servers. It had been pulled down after public outrage, but by that point, it had already been seen by over 4 million people. I watched it in full before this hearing, all 6 minutes and 42 seconds of it. It begins with Jade pointing her phone at Tyler and laughing. She is walking behind Sergeant Hale on the sidewalk. Tyler is doing impressions of the way Douglas walks, the slight limp from his knee. He is mocking it, laughing, making his followers laugh. Jade is giggling behind the camera, and in that giggle I heard something cold, something deliberate. This was not an accident. This was planned entertainment. Then Tyler reaches out and shoves Douglas from behind, hard. Douglas stumbled forward and hit his knee on the edge of a concrete step. He grabbed the railing of the shop entrance to keep from falling completely. His grocery bags went down. Eggs cracked on the pavement. A can of soup rolled into the street. And Douglas Hale, a man who once walked through a jungle in Vietnam with shrapnel in his leg, grabbed that railing with both hands and slowly straightened up. He turned around, and he looked at Tyler. He did not yell. He did not curse. He simply said, "Son, that was not right." And the camera, Jade's camera, zoomed in on his face, right on it, close. She wanted her audience to see every wrinkle, every bit of effort it took for this old man to stay upright. And she laughed. She laughed loud. She said to her followers, "Did you see that? Did you see his little face?" I had to stop reading. I put the file down. I pressed my fingers together on the desk, and I looked at Jade Mercer. She was looking at her nails. I said, "Ms. Mercer, I have just described the content of your own video. I need you to look at me when I speak." She looked up. "Thank you," I said. "Now, let us move to the second piece of evidence." The second piece of evidence was a series of text messages. 31 text messages, recovered from Jade's phone by the Providence Police Department under a lawful search warrant. These messages were sent between Jade and Tyler Bosch in the 40 minutes before the incident on Elmsworth Avenue. I'm going to share some of them with you now. I am paraphrasing, meaning I am putting them in simpler words, but the meaning is exact. Message 1, from Jade to Tyler. "There are so many good subjects tonight. Old people, homeless people. I want something funny." Message 2, from Tyler to Jade. "Leave it to me. I'll find someone good." Message 3, from Jade to Tyler. "Just make it dramatic. My last 3 videos bombed. I need something that blows up." And then, 11 minutes before the assault, "Tyler, I'm going live. Whatever you're doing, do it now." I read those messages out loud in my courtroom, slowly, one by one. And when I finished reading, I looked up at Jade Mercer and I said, "Ms. Mercer, these messages were sent from your phone. Are you disputing that?" She said, "No, Your Honor." I said, "So you knew what Tyler was going to do?" She paused. She squared her shoulders. And she said, "I didn't know he was going to touch anyone. I just said I wanted something dramatic." I said, "And when he shoved a 71-year-old man with a bad knee, a man carrying groceries on a public sidewalk, and that man nearly fell to the ground, you kept the camera rolling?" She said, "It happened fast." I said, "You zoomed in on his face." She said, That was reflexive. I said, Ms. Mercer, a reflex is when you pull your hand away from a hot stove. Zooming in on an injured man's face for your live audience is a choice. Do you understand the difference? She did not answer. I want to pause here and let that sink in, because this is the moment in every case where I can see whether a person is truly sorry or whether they are simply sorry they got caught. Watch her face in your mind. Watch the silence. This is where truth lives. And if this story is hitting you the way it is hitting me, share this video right now with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who thinks fame is more important than decency. This is the case for them. The third piece of evidence arrived in the form of a witness. Her name was Carla Odom. She was 28 years old and worked the closing shift at the grocery store on Elmsworth Avenue that night. She had seen everything from the doorway. She had tried to help Sergeant Hale after he stumbled. She had called the police, and she had saved something critical. Carla had her own phone out that night, not to record drama, but to document a crime. She had captured 14 seconds of footage that the platform servers had partially cut from Jade's video before it was removed. 14 seconds that showed exactly what happened between the moment Douglas straightened up and the moment Tyler walked away. In those 14 seconds, you could hear Jade's voice clearly, and what she said, to her live audience of tens of thousands of people watching in real time, was this: "Don't worry, he's fine. Old people are tougher than they look. Tyler, say something funny. Guys, if this is the best thing you've seen all week, smash that heart button. We're already at 42,000 watching. 42,000 people watching a 71-year-old veteran nearly collapse on a sidewalk, and she was narrating it like a sports broadcast." I looked at Jade. I said, "Do you recognize this footage?" She cleared her throat. "Yes, Your Honor." "Yes, your..." I said, "Is that your voice?" She said, "Yes." I said, "And those were your words?" She said, "Yes, but I want to give context." I said, Ms. Mercer, I will give you the opportunity to speak, but I want you to understand something. In this courtroom, context does not change what was said. Context does not put those eggs back together on the sidewalk. Context does not give Sergeant Hale back the 15 minutes he spent sitting on that cold stoop waiting for the police. You will have your chance to speak, but right now I am going to ask you one direct question, and I need a direct answer. She nodded. I said, "Did you at any point, after watching a senior citizen nearly fall to the ground, stop your live stream to check if he was okay?" Jade Mercer opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. She said, "I called out to him before I ended the stream." I said, "What did you call out?" She hesitated. I said, "Ms. Mercer, I have the full transcript of your live stream audio. It was submitted as part of the prosecution's evidence packet. What did you call out to Sergeant Douglas Hale before you ended your stream?" She looked down at her pearl-white nails. She said very quietly, I said, "Good show, Grandpa." The gallery did not erupt. It went completely, entirely, absolutely still. That kind of silence that is louder than any noise. I have experienced that silence only a handful of times in this courtroom. It means something has shifted. It means everyone in the room just felt the same thing at the same moment. I looked at Maya Hale in the front row. She had her hand pressed over her mouth. Her shoulders were shaking. I looked back at Jade, and then I said, very calmly, "Ms. Mercer, I am going to give you a moment, and in that moment, I want you to think carefully about your next words, because what you say right now will matter more than any video you have ever posted." She looked up, and I saw it, just for a second, a crack, something behind the pearl nails and the designer blazer, something young and scared and lost, but then she straightened up, and she said the words that changed everything. She said, "Your Honor, I want to be honest. That old man was a stranger. I didn't know he was a veteran. I didn't know about his knee. And honestly, my platform reaches 2.4 million people. What happened that night wasn't ideal, but it started a real conversation about public spaces and personal boundaries. My attorney, I personally, believe that the cultural impact of viral content sometimes creates more social good than harm. That video got 4 million views. It put Elmsworth Avenue on the map. That old man's face was seen by more people in one night than in his entire life. If anything, I gave him exposure. If anything, he should be thanking me for making him relevant. 10 seconds. That is how long my courtroom stayed silent after those words. 10 full seconds. And then the gallery broke open, not in cheers, in disbelief, in outrage, in the kind of collective human noise that sounds like a wound. Someone shouted, "Unbelievable." Someone else said, "Oh my God," loud enough that Officer Reyes turned toward them. Maya Hale stood up, then sat down, then covered her face with both hands. An older gentleman in the second row, a man I later learned was a Vietnam veteran himself, who had simply come to observe court that day, stood up from his seat, put his hand over his heart, and shook his head slowly. I did not raise my gavel. I did not need to, because every single person in that room had already gone quiet again. They were looking at me, waiting. I sat very still. I looked at Jade Mercer for a long time, long enough that she shifted her weight, long enough that the confidence on her face began to break apart at the edges like old paper in rain. Then I spoke. "Ms. Mercer," I said. "Jade, I'm going to say your name several times today, not to embarrass you, but because I want you to hear it the way he heard your voice. I want it to land." I took a breath. "Jade, you just said that a 71-year-old man with shrapnel still lodged near his elbow should be thanking you. You said that a decorated veteran who served this country, who carried groceries home alone because his wife of 43 years is gone, should be grateful to you. Because you gave him exposure." I leaned forward. "Let me ask you something. When Douglas Hale was 19 years old, the same age as his granddaughter sitting in that front row right now, do you know where he was? He was in a jungle in Southeast Asia. He was in the mud. He was under fire. He was watching his friends get hurt. He was writing letters home to his mother in Providence, Rhode Island, wondering if he was going to make it back. He made it back. He spent the next 50 years of his life being quiet about that, not posting it, not monetizing it, not asking for anything from anybody, just living, just grocery shopping, just walking home. I let that sit for a moment. And then you came along, and in 6 minutes and 42 seconds, you turned the last part of his walk home into content, into a performance, into a number on a screen, 4 million views, and you stood here in my courtroom and called that a gift." I sat back. "Jade, I have been in this courtroom for a long time. I have seen people make terrible mistakes. I have seen people who did something awful and truly did not understand why it was wrong. I have seen people who were young and careless and needed someone to show them the line. And I believe, I genuinely believe, that you are young and that some of what shaped you came from a world that told you attention is the same as value, that views are the same as worth, that if something gets clicks, it must be good." I paused. "But Jade, I'm telling you right now, and I need you to hear me, that world lied to you. Not everything that gets attention is good. Not everyone who goes viral deserved to. And not every story belongs to the person holding the camera." I looked at the gallery. I looked at Maya. I looked at the old veteran in the second row who still had his hand over his heart. "The story of Douglas Hale does not belong to you, Jade. It never did. His pain is not your content. His struggle is not your platform. His face, the face of a man who survived 2 tours of duty and 40 years of hard work and the grief of losing his wife, his face is not a thumbnail." Jade's chin was trembling. For the first time since she walked into my courtroom, she looked like what she actually was. A 24-year-old girl who had made a catastrophic mistake and was only now beginning to understand what it had cost. Good. Understanding is where everything starts. I want you to pause this video for just 1 second. Look up from your screen. Think about someone in your life, a grandparent, a neighbor, a veteran at your local diner, someone who has been through things you can't imagine, someone who never complained, someone who just kept going. This case is for them. If you feel that, if you carry someone like that in your heart, subscribe to this channel. Every case I bring you is about protecting people like Douglas Hale. Don't miss a single one. Now, the sentencing. I looked down at my papers. I organized my thoughts. And I spoke clearly, deliberately, without rushing. because every word of what I was about to say needed to be heard and understood. Ms. Jade Elaine Mercer, this court finds you guilty on all three charges: criminal harassment of a protected individual, that means a senior citizen; accessory to assault, supported by documented evidence including text messages, video footage, and witness testimony; and obstruction of a civil proceeding based on your attempt to frame this matter as insignificant during pretrial communications. I paused. The sentencing is as follows. First, financial penalty. You are ordered to pay a fine of $8,500. This will be split in the following way. $3,000 goes directly to a medical fund for Sergeant Douglas Hale to cover the physical therapy required for the re-aggravation of his knee injury, an injury he sustained in service to this country. $2,500 will be paid to the Providence Veteran Outreach Center on Calder Street in the name of Douglas Hale. This is not a donation, it is a reparation. $3,000 will be paid to the court as penalty fines. You have 30 days to begin payment and 90 days to complete it. Failure to meet this schedule results in automatic return to this courtroom. Jade nodded. I could see her calculating in her head. She had the money. That was not the hard part. The hard part was coming. Second, your phone. Ms. Mercer, as a condition of your sentence, you are prohibited from using any live streaming feature on any social media platform for a period of 18 months, effective immediately. This is not a ban on social media entirely. You may post, but you may not go live. You may not broadcast in real time. You may not stream another human being without their written, documented prior consent. This restriction will be monitored by your assigned court liaison. Violation of this condition results in immediate escalation to criminal court. She blinked. That one hit. For someone whose entire career, whose entire identity ran on live content, 18 months without going live was not just a punishment, it was an amputation. Third, community service. Ms. Mercer, you are ordered to complete 200 hours of direct community service, not general service, direct, supervised, in-person service. The breakdown is as follows. I read from my notes carefully. 100 hours are to be completed at the Providence Veterans Resource Center, also on Calder Street. You will assist with daily operations every Saturday and Sunday morning, from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. for a period of 5 months. You will check in with Coordinator Harold Finch every session. Your attendance will be logged and submitted to this court monthly. During these sessions, you will listen, you will help, you will not film, you will not post, you will not reference your work there on your platforms unless you have written approval from this court and from the veterans themselves. I let that register. The remaining 100 hours will be completed at Central High School in Providence, where you will participate in a court-approved digital responsibility program. You will speak to students between the ages of 15 and 18, an age group that is heavily influenced by content creators, about the real consequences of using other people's pain for entertainment. You will use your own case as the example. You will use your own words as the warning. You will not make it entertaining. You will make it honest. The school's guidance counselor, working with a court-appointed advisor, will review and approve your presentations before delivery. This service will be completed over 4 months, bi-weekly. Jade was no longer looking at her nails. She was looking at me, fully, without filters. Fourth, written accountability. Ms. Mercer, you are ordered to write a handwritten letter of apology to Sergeant Douglas Hale, not typed. Handwritten, minimum 2 pages. It must be written in your own words. It must acknowledge specific things, not general regret, specific things. The Zoom, the narration, the phrase you used at the end of your stream, the text messages to Tyler, the smile you wore when you walked into this courtroom. The letter must be submitted to this court within 14 days. I will read it. If I determine it is genuine, it will be delivered to Sergeant Hale. If I determine it is performative, meaning if I feel you are writing it the way you narrate a video rather than the way you talk to a human being, you will write it again. A long silence. Fifth, social media accountability. Upon completing your community service, and only upon completion verified by this court, you will be permitted to post a single statement on your platform regarding this case. That statement must be approved by this court in advance. It must contain no monetized elements, no ads, no brand deals, no affiliate links. It must be presented plainly, without production. Just your face, just your words. What you did, what it cost, what you learned. You are not permitted to use this case or Sergeant Hale's name for any future content, brand partnership, documentary, or podcast without express written permission from Sergeant Hale himself or his designated next of kin. I looked at Maya Hale in the front row. She had her chin up now. She was not crying anymore. I said, "Is there anything you would like to say before I close this record, Ms. Mercer?" Jade Mercer stood very still. She took a long breath, and when she spoke, the confidence was gone, the performance was gone. What was left was something raw and young and shaking. She said, "I don't know how to explain what I was thinking. I don't think I was thinking. I think I was so focused on the number, on the views, on keeping people watching, that I stopped seeing him as a person. I stopped seeing him at all. I just saw content. And that is the worst thing I have ever done, and I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am sorry." She looked toward Maya Hale. "I'm sorry for what I did to your grandfather. He didn't deserve any of it." Maya Hale looked at her for a long moment. She did not smile, she did not nod, but she also did not look away. And in that held gaze between a 19-year-old granddaughter and a 24-year-old stranger, I saw something I have seen in this courtroom before, the first fragile thread of something that might one day become understanding. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a willingness to be in the same room, to breathe the same air, to begin. That thread is rare. I never take it for granted. 6 months later, I received a report from Coordinator Harold Finch at the Providence Veterans Resource Center. The report was 2 pages long, typed on the center's letterhead. It described in detail the work Jade Mercer had completed over the prior 5 months. It said that she had arrived on time for every session, that she had been quiet at first, uncertain, clearly uncomfortable, that some of the veterans had recognized her face and had been cold with her, that she had not quit, that by the 3rd month she had begun sitting with a group of older veterans on Saturday mornings, listening to their stories, not filming them, not posting them, just listening. One of those veterans, an 82-year-old man named Earl who had served in Korea, had asked Jade to help him write a letter to his grandson because his hands shook too badly to write clearly anymore. She had done it. She had sat with him for 3 hours on a Tuesday afternoon that was not even one of her scheduled service days. She had come in on her own time because she wanted to. The report ended with one line that I have kept. I have it in my desk. It says, "Ms. Mercer does not yet understand the full weight of what she carried into this building 6 months ago, but she is beginning to, and beginning is everything." I also heard from Sergeant Douglas Hale, not in person, through a letter delivered to my office about 8 months after the hearing. Short letter, 2 paragraphs, written in a slow, careful hand. He said that his knee was doing better, that he had read Jade's handwritten apology, that it had taken him a week to read it because he had to put it down several times, that he did not know how he felt about her, that he was not sure he would ever fully know, but that he had decided to stop being angry, not for her sake, for his own. He said he was too old and had been through too much to spend whatever time he had left carrying someone else's mistake in his chest. He signed it. Douglas Hale, Sergeant, U.S. Army, retired. I read that letter 3 times. After I set it down, I sat alone in my office for a few minutes, just quiet, just thinking. This is something I do sometimes, not often, but sometimes, after a case that stays with me. I sit with it. I thought about what Jade Mercer had said in this courtroom, that a man's face, seen by millions, was exposure, that being noticed was the same as being valued. I thought about how many young people believe that right now, how many of them are walking through this world with a phone in their hand, looking at every moment as a potential post, looking at every person as a potential character in their story. And I thought about Douglas Hale walking home from a grocery store with eggs and soup and a quiet evening ahead of him. A man who had given this country everything it asked for and never once asked for recognition. A man whose greatest wish on a March evening was just to get home without his knee giving out. There is a version of this world in which fame is the highest thing, in which going viral is the same as mattering, in which the number of people who have seen your face tells you how much your life is worth. I do not live in that version of this world, and I will never preside over it. In this courtroom, worth is not measured in views. It is measured in what you did when no one was watching. It is measured in letters written slowly with shaking hands. It is measured in years of service that no algorithm will ever rank. Douglas Hale mattered before 4 million people saw his face. He mattered at age 19 in the mud of a jungle. He mattered at age 43 in a warehouse at 2 in the morning. He mattered on that sidewalk before Jade Mercer ever turned on her camera. And he will matter long after that video is forgotten. What we do in this courtroom is simple. We remind people of that, again and again, case by case, person by person. The session always ends, the gallery always empties, the bailiff always dims the lights, and I always walk out of this building wondering if it worked, if something I said reached someone who needed it, if some small piece of justice found its way home that day. I believe it does. I have to believe that. Because the alternative is to stop, and I am not ready to stop. My name is Judge Frank Caprio, and every case that comes before me is a chance to remind this world of something it keeps trying to forget. Every person in this room deserves dignity. Every person on that street deserves safety. Every person who gave something to this country deserves to walk home in peace. That is not a complicated idea, but it is worth repeating every single day. And if you are still here, if you watch this all the way to the end, then I think you already know that. I think you already believe it. So carry it with you. Share this story. Let it reach someone who needs it. Let Douglas Hale's quiet dignity mean something beyond what happened on that sidewalk. Let it be the thing that makes one more person put the phone down, look up, see who is in front of them, and choose decency over content. That is all I ask. Court is adjourned.